So a new Second Amendment case is up for Supreme Court review, and it involves firearms confiscations under red flag laws. So let's talk about this. But real quick before I jump into this video, if you think red flag laws are clearly unconstitutional and need to be struck down, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Also, I want to thank a huge supporter of this channel, which is Blackout Coffee. Blackout Coffee makes amazing coffee, and also they are huge Second Amendment supporters. They currently have various roasts that actually go to supporting 2A organizations like the Firearms Policy Coalition and also Gun Owners of America. So if you're interested in supporting the 2A cause and getting some great coffee, I will leave a link to Blackout Coffee down below. How's it going, everyone? My name is Anthony Miranda. I am a licensed and practicing attorney in the state of California with an emphasis on Second Amendment rights. I've been part of Second Amendment litigation both at a state level and a national level, while serving as a staff attorney with the Firearms Policy Coalition legal team. My goal with these videos is not to provide you any legal advice, but instead to give you greater insight into the inner workings of Second Amendment litigation and help you understand what's currently going on in the battle for our right to keep and bear arms. As I mentioned in the intro, in this video we will be discussing a Second Amendment case and a Fourth Amendment case which is currently seeking Supreme Court review. The case we're talking about in this video is called Greco v. Platkin, and it's a challenge to the state of New Jersey's extreme risk protection orders, also known as red flag laws. This case provides an interesting opportunity for the Supreme Court to revisit this issue of red flag laws and the whole unlawful search and seizure of firearms. One of the questions after a recent Supreme Court decision, a unanimous decision in the Coniglia v. Strom case, was whether or not the Supreme Court would eventually hear other types of cases which deal with these types of issues, particularly red flag laws. Well, now the Supreme Court has a case in front of it which deals with this type of issue. So the facts around this case are as follows. In 2018, the state of New Jersey passed a law called the New Jersey Extreme Risk Protection Order Act of 2018. The state of New Jersey joined 17 other states which have similar types of laws, but the state of New Jersey took their law beyond what other states had already done. Typically in other states, when law enforcement is acting under that state's version of a red flag law, the court is presented with preliminary information in a civil complaint or a petition alleging that a person who lawfully owns guns may be a danger to themselves or others. New Jersey's version of this law creates a structure where at the initial complaint and petition stage, the court is directed under the statute to use good cause in that legal standard instead of probable cause. This means at the very beginning stage of the whole process, law enforcement becomes authorized to kick into your front door, kick in the door of a person and enter their home forcibly and seize their firearms and ammunition under this whole good cause standard instead of having to present probable cause to engage in that type of conduct. This means that the state of New Jersey allows the court to authorize search and seizure warrants using the lower good cause standard instead of probable cause. Because of this, the state of New Jersey is violating both the Second Amendment and also, more importantly for this case, the Fourth Amendment rights of these individuals. Now, before this law went into effect on August 12th of 2019, the New Jersey Administrative Office of the Courts issued a memo on these whole extreme risk protective orders, openly acknowledging that the text of this law of the statute that was passed as enacted was in fact a violation of the Fourth Amendment and was indeed unconstitutional. They came to this conclusion because of the use of good cause instead of probable cause. Then the New Jersey Attorney General also issued a memo agreeing that the laws and the use of good cause instead of probable cause was indeed unconstitutional as written. So the plaintiffs in this case filed a lawsuit challenging this law in the state of New Jersey. And in fact, the district court, in originally hearing this case at the very start of the arguments in this case and in the hearing on this case, said, and I'm quoting, "Okay, you can now be seated. Before we get started, could we agree for the purposes of this hearing that on its face, this law is unconstitutional?" To which the state's attorney responded, "That's quite an opener, Your Honor." So the state at multiple levels agreed as written, this red flag law in the state of New Jersey was indeed unconstitutional. Even the district court judge originally in this case believed that it was unconstitutional. You may be asking yourself then, how did this case eventually wind up before the Supreme Court? Well, there are really two issues which arose in this case. First, the state of New Jersey argued that under the Younger v. Harris case, the court should abstain from hearing this case at hand. Younger v. Harris was a 1971 case in which the U.S. Supreme Court held that federal courts would be required to abstain from hearing any civil rights torts claims brought by a person who is currently being prosecuted for a matter arising from that claim. In an 8-1 decision, the court held that federal courts may not hear the cases until the person is convicted or found not guilty of the crime unless the defendant will suffer an irreparable injury that is both great and immediate. And in doing that, they also found that merely having to endure a criminal prosecution is no such irreparable harm. So abstaining was the first defense raised by the state of New Jersey. And also they argued that the memo which the Attorney General had sent out, essentially telling the courts to ignore the actual text of the unconstitutional law, but instead to apply probable cause instead of good cause, was sufficient enough to actually fix this issue. Now, multiple times during the lower court hearings, the original district court judge rejected the whole younger abstention requests and didn't really find that it was valid. However, 14 months into the case, when there was a hearing on a motion for summary judgment, all of a sudden the district court judge there decided to change his mind and ultimately granted a motion to dismiss on those whole younger abstention grounds and claims. So ultimately the plaintiff had to appeal that up to the Third Circuit, who ultimately ruled in favor of the state once again, finding that that decision by the lower court was appropriate. And now this case is seeking Supreme Court review to find whether or not the lower courts actually ruled in the appropriate manner. So now the Supreme Court will consider whether or not the dismissing of the case was appropriate using that whole younger case, and also whether or not the whole memo actually fixed this issue, and also whether or not the whole violation of the Fourth Amendment, the Second Amendment under red flag laws, is indeed actually a constitutional violation. And ultimately, the Supreme Court is going to have an opportunity to finally hear a red flag case if they want. Now, this Greco case is really important because it could be the first case to kind of springboard off of a prior Supreme Court unanimous decision in the case called Caniglia v. Strom. Now, if you're not familiar with what that case dealt with whether the law enforcement officers in that case could use the excuse of a community caretaking in that exception to search and seize firearms within a home without a warrant or probable cause. In the Caniglia case, the state was trying to use the rules which apply to vehicles and therefore apply them to also a search and seizure of firearms within a home. Now, ultimately, the unanimous decision of the Supreme Court struck down the use of that type of community caretaking exception, and Justice Thomas wrote for the majority. Justice Thomas, writing for the majority, stated that, in that opinion, the Fourth Amendment protects the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. The very core of this guarantee is the right of a man to retreat into his own home and there be free from unreasonable governmental intrusions. Based on this, the Supreme Court unanimously found that the warrantless entry into the home of Mr. Caniglia and the seizure of his firearms was indeed unconstitutional. One of the major questions coming out of that decision from the Supreme Court in the Caniglia case was how that case may impact red flag laws and maybe how this issue would address those type of laws like the state of New Jersey was trying to put in place. Well, Justice Thomas, in writing the concurrence in that decision, stated that the decision was not meant to address red flag laws, but that cases may eventually come up before the court which they will need to address. In this case, Greco may present the Supreme Court the opportunity which was anticipated by Justice Alito. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not the Supreme Court wants to take up this case that deals with red flag laws, which a lower court and even the state itself had admitted was clearly unconstitutional and violated the Fourth Amendment. The only reason this case has made its way all the way up to the Supreme Court is because of the lower court and them allowing the state to kind of weasel their way out based on the abstaining under Younger. And ultimately, the Supreme Court will now have to consider whether or not they think that that was appropriate or whether they even want to hear this type of two-way and Fourth Amendment case dealing with red flag laws. So this is a really interesting case, and I hope the Supreme Court takes it up because it could include some language that could be really helpful to attacking some other state red flag laws, not just in the state of New Jersey. So if anything else develops, I will let you all know. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm or fuel Al Gore's rhythm. It adds fuel to his jet and signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of two-way news. As always, I want to thank everybody who likes, comments, subscribes, who hits the notification bell, who shares these videos. You guys are directly impacting these videos, impacting this channel, helping me to reach and educate more people than I could ever do on my own. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.